Welcome to JonGetsGames. As selected by the voting level supporters of my Patreon page, today I'll be reviewing Codenames. In this game, players will be splitting up into two teams who are going to be competitively giving clues and trying to deduce what those clues mean to be the first people to find all of their agents out on the field. First, I'm going to show you how the game plays, and then I'll jump into my review. Here's the starting setup for Codenames. We have a 25 by 25 list of these randomized words, which are the codenames themselves, and then we've got a stack of blue agents, red agents, neutral people who are very confused, and the assassin. The last thing we need before we can actually play is a key. So we're going to randomly draw one of those from a big deck, and you'll notice there are red lights and blue lights on the outsides. Those are the starting teams. So if we take this one, then the red team is going to start. The orientation of this doesn't matter. We can slide it into this little holder. And lastly, we have this guy right here which shows a red or a blue. We see that the starting team is red, so we flip it to the red side, and now we're ready to play. The perspective that we're looking at right now is that of the Spy Masters. You're going to split everybody who's playing into two different teams, and then each team is going to pick a single Spy Master. They're going to sit on one side of the table next to each other, looking at this key card, and everybody else is looking at the back, not knowing what this says. The goal of the game is to be the first team to reveal all of their colored agents that are in this matrix, and the way you do that is a Spy Master gives clues to their field operatives, and they try to get them to guess these different code names here. And if you look at this chart, that tells you which of these cards are associated with which team. That means that Temple is red, Snowman is neutral, these confused people over here, Pole is red. You look down here, we'll see that Date, Gas, and Press, those are all blue operatives. And finally, there is this black one with an X that is associated with Genius. That is the assassin over there, and I'll explain what he does in a minute. I mentioned already that the red team is the starting team, and you might notice that they actually have 9 different agents to guess versus the blue team only having 8. That's a little bit of balancing for the fact that they get to go first. So now it's the red team's turn to give a clue. There are a few different stipulations as to what makes a clue legal, but in general, the clue needs to be a single word, or it could be a proper name like George Washington or something like that. That word cannot exist on any of these 25 words out here, and then you follow that clue up with a single number. For example, the red Spy Master might look out here and make the clue Wood 3. They're looking out and they see forest, maple, and deck, and well, all those are associated with wood, and they notice that those are all their different code names. And they look out at all the other stuff and they don't think there's too many great correlations. Now it goes to their team, and their team tries to figure out which ones they're talking about. And now it's time for all the red field operatives to discuss which ones they think are the correct 3 different code names that are associated with wood. They might look out and say, well, a pole is oftentimes made of wood, and cross, that could be associated with wood, but looking at everything on the map, I think they would imagine that maple is the strongest connection with wood, so they would say, well, we're going to choose maple first. In this case, the red Spy Master sees that that is correct, so they would take one of their agent cards, place it directly on top of it, and that shows that they found one of their 9 agents. Since the number associated with the clue was 3, that means that the field operatives can keep guessing because they guess correctly. In fact, they can guess to that number plus 1 times, so they could do 4 guesses if they really wanted to. This was a pretty straightforward clue. I think in this case the red field operatives would probably guess forest next, which would also be correct, so we'd put that down here. They would have 2 more guesses, and the number was only 3, so they might look at deck, pole, and cross, and they might say, you know what, I think it's cross. Now, that is actually one of the code names for the red field operatives, so they would get to put this down here on that spot, and the Spy Master doesn't have to tell them. In fact, they're not allowed to tell them that that was incorrect. They were actually talking about deck over here. All they know is they got one correct, and at any point, the team can decide to stop. So in this case, the red team has 3 clues. They have 3 agents. I think they would choose to stop, and it would then be the blue team's turn. The blue Spy Master looks at all their clues, and they might say their clue is going to be death 2, because they see gas and they see disease, and they think those are both associated with death pretty well. Now the blue field operatives are all discussing it, they're looking at everything out here, and they see something that the blue Spy Master might not have. They see missile, and they think, well, a missile is probably more likely to be directly correlated with death than disease or gas is, so they think that might actually be the best clue. So they would say missile is our choice. The blue Spy Master would then look and confirm that that is indeed a red agent instead of a blue agent, so they would take one of these red agent cards here, they put it on top of missile, they'd be very sad, and that would be the end of the blue team's turn. It would now go back to the red team because they guessed incorrectly. But it's good to keep in mind that the blue team still knows they have Death 2 as a clue going forward that they have not been able to grab on the board yet. It would now be the red Spy Master's turn again, and looking out, they might give a clue something like Stick 2, because they see Bolt down here and they see Pole, and they're trying to get their team to go along with that. However, they might not notice that there is also Spike out here, or they might not associate that. So in that case, if the red team, the red field operatives saw this and guessed Spike, well, we would look over to this map here and we see that that is a neutral spot. So we would take this very confused looking citizen, we put that down on Spike, and it would immediately end the red team's turn because you only get to keep guessing when you are guessing correctly. However, if you guess a neutral spot, well, that's okay. You're not helping your opponent out at all. You're just treading water. So now it's back to the blue team, and they know they have the previous clue of Death 2 that wasn't used at all. They might look around and want to cash that in, so they might say, well, Thorn 1, because they can't really associate Rose with anything else that they really like. So the blue team might guess Rose, so they'd take this down, put it here, and they know they have one more guess, because again, you take the number that was associated with the clue and you add 1 to that. So they look around here and maybe see disease and guess that when they're associating it with the first clue of death, they would get that correctly, put that down there, and that would be the end of blue's turn, and it would go back to the red team. The final type of agent that we haven't talked about is this assassin over here, and there's just one of those, and there's a reason for that. You see this X right here, which I mentioned was genius before. That is an instant fail guess. If at any point any of the field operatives decide that they want to take a look at the code name that's associated with the assassin, they would immediately lose for that entire team. We'd take this assassin piece, we put it down there, and the game would be over, even though no team has fully revealed all of their different players. If the red team, even though they were far in the lead, guessed genius, well, this goes down, the game is immediately over, and the blue team wins. But if no team bumps into that assassin there, then the game is just going to go back and forth as the teams are guessing, and they're getting things correctly, and they're getting things wrong, and they're going to keep going until the final agent is found. At that point, the game is going to be over, and the team that found all of their agents wins. In this case, that would be red. There is one other way that you can play Codenames. Now that was the competitive style where you're going one team versus another. You can also play this game cooperatively, so this will work for 2, 3 players, or you could play with 7 people if you wanted to, and you just didn't want to conflict back and forth. And the way that works is one person is going to be the spy master, just like before, and they're going to be giving clues just like before. They're always going to be the team that's associated with the color around the outside of the key, and the only real difference is that every time that the field operatives guess wrong, or they decide to stop on their guessing and it goes to the other team, the spy master, there is only one spy master in this case, is going to take a single card from the top of the enemy team, and they're going to cover up one of those associated clues on the board. And they can do this strategically. They can cover a clue that's been really messing up another clue that they really want to give, and then they're going to go back and give some more clues. So this is going to go back and forth until the players cooperatively get all of their agents down, or of course bump into the assassin. At that point, you're going to look at the back of the rule book here, and it shows you your score essentially. You count the number of the opposing agents that are out on the board, and then that is what you get. I've played this a couple times, and we've gotten your watches are synchronized a couple times, okay, but you could do better, and even one time we got top secret clearance. It doesn't seem like you fail at this very often, but you're of course striving to get better and better scores when you're doing the cooperative mode. Alright, so let's start reviewing Codenames. The first positive point is simply that this game is really, really easy to teach, and that lends itself to being quite acceptable by a broad amount of people. Some people who might call themselves gamers have really enjoyed it, but people who would not call themselves gamers have also enjoyed it because the rule set's so simple. You can explain this game in just a couple minutes, you just set it out and start playing. And in addition to having some good thinky things that are going on in there, you also have great social interactions between the two teams where you can be egging people on, or just having lots of good discussions between the people on the team, figuring out, well, do you think this or do you think that, and maybe even taking votes. And it's a very social experience, which lends itself to a party-style atmosphere, and the fact that it does have a light rule set helps all of that together. You just set it down on the table, explain just the basics in probably like 30 seconds, and just start, especially if the people who are the spy masters have played it before. So that's a really big positive to the game because it's just accessible by pretty much everybody. The second positive point is that there are 2 distinct roles in the box. You have the people playing the spy master, and then you have the people playing the field operatives. And those 2 roles are quite different, and I found that some people take to one role more than the other. For instance, I much prefer being the field operative, the person who is receiving the clues and trying to figure out what they mean by that, versus other people really enjoy the clue crafting aspect, where they look at all of their specific agents out there in the field and trying to figure out how they're going to tie all this stuff together into a succinct, really good clue. And I like playing both. I won't always do field operative, but I've found that certain people will just prefer to do one thing or another, or say, oh, I've never been the Spy Master before. It's like, well, you play that, and even though this is your 4th time playing, this is going to be the first time you're the Spy Master, and it's going to feel very new in that moment. I think it's pretty cool that there are 2 different gaming experiences in the same box that everybody is doing at the same time. And the third positive point is that the gameplay length is approximately 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes if you happen to have a slow-going group. And what that means is you can play this game for as long or as short as you want. It seems like it rarely gets played only once. Usually at least 2 games get played in a row, but I've seen 4 games get played in a row. And it just allows you to fill in whatever you're looking for. You could play this game for an hour and a half and have a satisfying experience where pretty much everybody gets to be the Spy Master and you're changing the teams around. But you could also play it for 15 minutes while you're waiting for somebody else to come in and then jump into a different game. So it can be fit into any different kind of gaming setting that you're looking for, and that versatility is a big bonus. Okay, so I have one neutral point, and that has to do with the cooperative play mode in the game. And this is neutral because I don't think there is anything wrong with the cooperative play. I just think it's a little bit less exciting than the standard competitive play. Now, I've done several cooperative games of it, and I have enjoyed it, but it's different. You don't have the heckling. You don't have the communal discussion going on. I'm talking specifically about the 2-player game where one person is a Spy Master and one person is the field operative. And it's a good experience. It's fun. It's like a much upgraded version of 20 Questions or something like that. But in this instance, it can be a bit quiet. You might be able to vocalize the things that you're thinking about so that the Spy Master kind of knows where your brain is, and you might think that's sort of cheating, but it doesn't matter because it's cooperative. But you lose that competitive zeal that you have to really beat that other team and try and race to get to the end before they do, and try and mess them up by telling them all sorts of terrible clues while they're trying to figure things out. You lose that fun, active social layer, but there's still a good game in there in the cooperative mode. I just don't think it's going to be for everybody. I've certainly enjoyed it, and I look forward to playing it that way some more, but it's not the best incarnation of the game. And now for the one negative I have for Codenames, and I almost made this a neutral, but I decided to make it negative because it really can sour the game experience sometimes, even for me, and that is analysis paralysis possibilities. You really need to make sure that the person who is your Spy Master is not prone to analysis paralysis, because there is a lot to look at, especially when the game very first begins and the first team Spy Master, they might take several minutes to come up with a good clue, and they're racking the brain, and then they give a clue that just has 2 as a number at the end of it, and you're like, what? You spent all that time? And there's just a lot to take in as a Spy Master. It's a very solitary experience, and especially that first clue can be quite difficult. And I've seen games of this go where if the Spy Master is too much into the analysis, too much in trying to get a perfect, amazing clue, it will drag down the energy of the overall game. You really need to keep it going. You don't want this game to go more than 10 or 15 minutes because it's just not built for that. And in those situations, I find myself saying, just give any clue, like even a clue within 1 at the end of it, but we just got to keep the game going. And the game does come with a little sand timer in there if you feel like things are dragging in order to keep it going. But I think at the end of the day, that might be a subtle flaw to the game. Like just throwing a sand timer in there does not fix any potential analysis paralysis issues that are there. Pretty much it has to be social and group-oriented fixing where you just say, you know what, that one person should probably never be the Spy Master because we all know it's going to take way too long. And I'm being totally honest with you, that's part of the reason why I don't like being the Spy Master, because I am a bit prone to analysis paralysis in board games in general. And I find myself in this game, which is sitting there, and then that anxiety starts to creep in. Once it's been like a minute or two and I haven't come up with a good clue yet, then I'm starting to worry about how long it's taking, and I'm becoming worse and worse of a Spy Master because I'm more and more focused on how boring this is as everybody's just staring at me trying to come up with something. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. I still really enjoy playing the game, so it doesn't make the game bad, but you need to keep that in mind, that some people will really clash with the amount of analysis that goes on here, and you need to beware and try and do what you can to get around that. And now let's talk about the replayability of Codenames. I didn't count the exact number, but there are around 200 double-sided word cards in the game, and you only use 25 in each game. So that's 400-ish words. You are just never going to have a situation where you're like, oh, I can correlate these two words together into the same clue like I did 3 games ago. Even though after a couple games you're going to start to recognize a couple of these words, it's all about the way the words interact with each other. And even if you have several words in the same playing area as a previous game, odds are good they're not going to be on the same teams as they were before. So it means every time you play this game, the correlations and connections are fresh, and that makes the replayability of Codenames very good. I mean, you're playing pretty much the same game every time, and you can mix it up by being a field operative one game and a spy master the next. But the decisions that you're making, you're really not going to find yourself saying, oh, the same clue worked. Oh, I'm going to do the same style of clue every single time. It seems to be staying fresh after around 9 or 10 games for me so far. I can see it feeling fresh and interesting for at least twice that, probably many more. Codenames officially plays 2 to 8 players, and I've done the 2-player game and the 8-player game, but I've also done an 11-player game, so that top number of 8 is a bit of a soft one. There are essentially 2 different player counts for this game. There is the 2 to 3 player game, and then there is the 4+ player game. In that 2 to 3 player game, you are playing cooperatively, and it is enjoyable, but it's that 4+ player game that I've talked about a little bit before that is much more social, where you're getting in each other's way and you're really discussing a lot more about all the different things that you're wanting to do there. So they both play well. I enjoy the cooperative and I enjoy the competitive. I give the edge to the competitive, and honestly, that 11-player game was fine. Pretty much, if you can get the bodies around the table so that they can't see the key, then you could just throw more people at it, because it's a group decision type of thing. And now at a certain point, it's going to be way too many people and it might take too long as people discuss things back and forth. But I like that you could just pull people in and pull people out as maybe someone wants to go play another game or somebody shows up to your game night. It makes it a very flexible, competitive experience, and both of those play really well, but I give the slight edge to the competitive style. In conclusion, I really like this game. It is a thinky party game, and in general, I'm not a big fan of party-style games, but this one has the social aspect to it, where you're discussing things back and forth, where you might be heckling back and forth over the table, but you are also really thinking about really cool correlations and how you're going to make these 2 words fit, or you're trying to figure out what they were going for. Your spy master might give you a clue and you look at the table and you're like, I have no idea. But you and your partners are going to try to figure that out, and that's a really fun experience. I think it's amazing how fun this game is from 2 to a very large number of players, that in every single one of those player counts, there is fun inside this box. It is so incredibly versatile. You know, I've really enjoyed those cooperative games where it's just myself and my wife, and we're sitting there and we're kind of talking through what we're doing, but we're also just enjoying that cooperative experience. But having 7 or 11 people in the room and you all want to play a game before you maybe split up into a few other ones, you can get the same box off the shelf and have a great amount of fun with all those people as with just 2 people. I think it's extraordinary how versatile it is, and especially for the price point, I think that Codenames is an excellent buy. I think I see it sticking around in my collection for a very long time. I really don't see it exiting my collection ever, to be honest with you, and I think that is very high praise. I strongly recommend you check this one out. It's really solid. If you'd like to become more involved with the channel, you can directly support it at patreon.com/JonGetsGames. And if you'd like to see more in-depth reviews like this one, as well as playthroughs and vlogs, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.